Hi, I'm Vishal Salvi, Chief Information Security Officer and Head of Cybersecurity Business for Infosys. I'm glad to have Thomas Leen, who's the Chief Information Security Officer of BHP here, for a very interesting interaction. I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you, Vishal.
Thomas, thank you so much for joining. Just wanted to, get some different views from you in terms of what's happening in the cybersecurity industry and what are the different issues that we are grappling with. So just to kick off, one of the major changes that we are seeing is in terms of, the rapid adoption of cloud, and clearly, apart from the business workloads going onto the cloud, one of the major changes that we are seeing is also in terms of how it is putting pressure on the legacy on-prem security stack and the cloud native stack, right? So what is your take in terms of what's happening and what is it that we're going to happen in near future as far as this stack is concerned?
Yeah, good question, Vishal. A lot of questions around cloud and cloud seen as an insecure solution. I think that's a past, may have been the case many years ago, but cloud can be very secure as you want it to be. So, but the key is to also make sure that you build it securely before the adoption starts. If you don't do that, the natural trend for people is to trickle into this. So you need to get ahead of the game. You need to start having different thinking, and don't get stuck in the mindset of on-prem is everything, because the world's moving. Security needs to move along and be in the forefront to be able to enable those outcomes securely. So my view is, I think security is the context, and it's how you actually implement it from a people, process, and technology perspective. And cloud can actually bring a huge opportunity to secure things. If I think about the mining industry, where I spend a lot of time on, there's a lot of legacy infrastructure in these areas, which is really hard to secure and very hard to refresh, unlike the traditional IT environments. So a transformation to cloud would bring a lot of opportunity to bring much better security hygiene into those environments. And it does bring in challenges around skill sets, and from a traditional security professional's perspective, different ways of thinking. You really can't think about a security world where everything is within a certain set of perimeters that you control. The future of all businesses is going to have a lot of third parties, partners. The ecosystem is going to be different. You really have to think about how to shift your security thinking to be more inclusive of the changes in the technology landscape.
In fact, one of the things which we're also seeing in cloud issue with cloud is that if you actually fail to adopt cloud, most of the OEMs are now having a cloud first strategy, and so you do not catch the innovation because it comes much later on-prem, right?
Absolutely, and even security solutions themselves. If you want to meet the scale that you need to cater for, it's very hard and expensive to do it on-prem, and you're always going to be playing the catch-up game. So you got to stay ahead of the game, and you have to shift the mindset of security to be, and embracing cloud and the benefits that come with it, both for the business solutions to enable them securely, and also for our own tooling.
Yeah, shifting gears a bit, IT and OT, right? And there are clearly the policies, and the problem is the same. We are trying to ensure that the integrity, confidentiality, availability of the information across IT or OT is secured. But I think there are clearly differences, right? Do you want to really highlight what are the key differences between the two topics?
So my view, the IT OT problem is actually a culture problem, and as much as it is a technical challenge as well. So why culture problem? So when you look at IT and our mindsets around all the standard processes and how to take change management as an example, you go through a cab, get the change approved, and you push it through. Whereas when you come into OT, the same type of work gets done, but by the engineers in the operational technology space. They don't understand the IT world, but their focus is on reliability, safety, and their processes are around catering to make sure this doesn't impact the reliability of a solution that they built and the safety of the people in those environments. If you really look at it, there's no difference between these two worlds, but it's the language difference. They don't talk the same language. So, for example, they don't talk ITIL, they talk different languages. So this is one starting problem. Then the second issue is when the IT person thinks about IT, OT integration, the first thing that comes to mind is network convergence. Now, and for the OT person, that's a huge risk. They think this is going to cause issues, which is the problem. Because you really still have to maintain the network segregation or segmentation within the network to make sure critical safety or production critical systems are separated from mainstream IT problems. So you really have a two-speed environment. You have the IT environment where there's lots of change happening fast, whereas in the OT environment, you just can't push changes that fast. You got to go through the governance steps to make sure it's not impacting safety. There's also, especially in the industry that I come from, there's also the regulatory requirements that actually doesn't allow you to make that level of changes. So if you integrate these two environments, you do two things. One, you slow down the changes that you want to do in the IT, which really you want to do. You don't want to slow that down, but when you go down to the OT space, if you go at the same pace as in the IT space, you could potentially cause severe harm to people there. Sure. So that's cultural problems, understanding language issues. So it's really is integration of two teams that have two distinct skill sets, two distinct best practices, and the merging of these two. And that's the key. When it comes to IT and OT, from a security person standpoint, understanding the difference between the two and making sure that you get the actual outcome that is intended by leveraging both the environments. That's the key.
Very important, and I don't think this topic has been much talked about. We tend to throw technology as the solution for the problem and not really the cultural nuances and the challenges that are there or the problems to be solved.
Oh, absolutely. So it's a traditional IT mindset. We have a tool for everything, or we have an app for everything that we want to, every business problem. It really is about understanding what is actually the business issue, what is it that the business is trying to achieve. Can existing tooling serve it? Maybe it's a process change. So it's a different way of thinking for the IT world. And think engineering, think process safety. In the OT world, they think heavily around process safety. And we think about IT processes and optimization of processes from a cost perspective or agility perspective. You need to actually merge these two. You need to have process safety thinking in IT world, and you need to have the OT people thinking more about how can we do this more optimally, how can we adopt more standards and best practices from the likes of the processes within IT.
Sure. So, we're talking about culture, right? And I think culture plays, or awareness plays, a very, very important part on, generally trying to drive cybersecurity strategy. And there are different stakeholders, right? You're starting from the board to leadership, to your own teams, to your employees, to your external stakeholders, like customers or your third parties. Any advice in terms of how CISO should look at these different engagements, stakeholders, and what is the role that the CISO needs to play in terms of really creating that awareness and culture to drive and make your cybersecurity program effective?
Yeah, I think the CISO role is kind of dual-headed. You need to be on the technology side, understanding the technology, understanding the risk with the technology, and then on the business side, you need to be able to tell a story on how that would impact the business ambitions. So it's really important from a CISO perspective to understand the business, and obviously for the whole security team. And in fact, it's not just the security team. I would broaden it up to the whole of technology teams, IT teams. Understand the business, understand what the business processes are, and the key systems that support those processes, and then risk management. That's the foundational piece. So security is actually a business risk. It's not an IT risk. It's not a technology risk. So the ability to explain that story in a manner without using tech jargon to a business customer or a business user is the key.
Sure. So, Thomas, you've been in cyber for many years. What would be your advice to a budding, aspiring CISO what are the things that he or she needs to look at, when he or she takes up such a challenge?
A holistic view to risk management. You already probably have a technology background which solves half the problem. The gaps that I normally see is understanding the business which you're trying to protect, understanding the entire value chain of the business, because you need to be broader than what's within the four walls of the organization. What's the threat landscape like? What can impact the business? And then try to relate that to how that would impact a business outcome. And learning as much as you can. Spend a lot of time in the business, see how they actually do their job, what keeps the business leaders awake. Is it sales numbers? Is it financial reporting? Is it dealing with the market? Also things, understand that. So go with an open mind to understand the business. And then you overlay that with how your knowledge of the threat landscape, internal and external, would cause an impact to that risk that this business leader is worrying about. Spending time on that is really important. The tools come next. The tool should be there to support you to fix a problem that you're trying to fix. The tool shouldn't be the first thing that you go to, and that's the really important aspect. People think we'll need all the latest tools, but sometimes optimize what you have might give you the same outcome. So that's really important. You want to be seen as a business leader as opposed to a IT leader doing security.
Yeah. And lastly, what is the advice to the CISOs in terms of when they engage with the leadership and the board? What are the key aspects that you need to keep in mind to be successful and really assure them and communicate the risk? What are some, a pulse of wisdom you want to advise?
Yeah, I guess the most important piece is understanding the language. So don't go to the board, talk tech and not operational data. So you really have to have the ability to talk the right language for the right audience. You want to talk to a group of IT people, you need to be able to talk that language that they understand. Same way, you go to a board, you want to talk to them about what matters to the board and how the work that you're doing is protecting that outcome. So that's number one. And then don't scare them, because you really want to make them understand the risk and what worries you. Explain it in a language that they understand, and show that you're able to manage that risk appropriately. So that's really important to show. So for example, you don't want to go and say, I have 50% of my environment patched. What does that really mean? You really want to go tell them in a different language, so I have a security hygiene challenge that I'm trying to work through, here's what my plan is, and here's help I need, or here's all the things we are doing, as opposed to everything is broken, the sky is falling down. That's a big mistake if you do that. So language, and know that you'll get the support when the leaders understand the why.
Thomas, thank you so much for taking time out and sharing your ideas with us. That was Thomas Leen, CISO of BHP, sharing his views on cybersecurity and what should be the strategy and how we should look at cybersecurity for the future. Thank you.